Hi.
So welcome everybody to the 8th Zoom meeting from Moving Forward, the RBE Learning Network. Tonight we're going to be hearing it's night here. Today we're going to hear a presentation on the possibilities of advanced technology for transition to an RBE from Nicholas. It's going to take about 40 minutes, and after that period, we're going to have a round for questions and or comments. People are going to be able to talk a couple of minutes what they understand or what they don't understand, and hopefully we'll be able to end the meeting at around 9:30. Yes? So, without any further ado, I'd like to turn the meeting over to Nicholas. Welcome.
Cool, thank you very much, Charlotte. All right, so I guess I'll share my screen immediately with you guys. And let me know if you can see. Is it good?
Yes. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm just gonna leave Charlotte here, I guess, and maybe, can you just do some like sign language or something if something's up with someone? Just so you can see most of the screen. And I'll full screen it here. Is there a way to hide this? Or does it go away by itself? Yeah, okay. Awesome. All right, so welcome everyone. I'll be giving this presentation. The title I chose for it was How Automation and Exponential Technologies, and I'll be explaining what those are in the presentation, will create abundance and bring us closer to a resource-based economy. So just to give you a bit of background information, or at least to introduce you to this, I don't want to focus on any negative, you could say, possibilities that come out of this, these technologies. What I want to give in this presentation is just, I want to leave you guys with an understanding of how technology is accelerating at an incredible speed, and how a resource-based economy is much closer, like the possibility of creating one is much closer than most people would guess, I think. So I'd really like to kind of frame this meeting in positive terms. So I know a lot of these technologies can be scary once you think of all the implications and all the possibilities that they can give. But I'm presenting to a group of activists right now, or people that support a resource-based economy that want to do good stuff with it. So let's focus on that, because that's the most constructive thing we can do. Sure, people can use them for bad things. It's technology. So I think this is the most useful thing that we can do, spread awareness about these technologies to people that want to do good things with them. And then there are idiots that will try to ruin everything everywhere for any other situation. So I'm not going to be talking about a resource-based economy in this presentation. I'm taking for granted that you all know what it is. So I hope that's okay with you. And I'm really passionate about this, but I'm not an expert. I guess I follow these trends more than the average person, and they've led me to, I'm actually studying now. I've just started my first year in robotic systems and industrial automation here in Ireland. So I'm going to be studying this, and this is what I want to do as a profession, or really, actually, I must say, this is the most useful way I believe I can contribute to a resource-based economy. So with that said, if there are no more questions, I'll just dive in. So, okay. So I'm just going to start out with a moment of clarity. So why am I giving this presentation? So I personally discovered the concept of resource-based economy about 5 years ago. I just got out of high school and I was working a job, and a lot of things in society just didn't make sense to me. And when I found out about it, I was just like, this is what I've been looking for. So I'm really passionate about it. I think about resource-based economy every day, every hour. Like, I'm obsessed with it. So ever since I've discovered that this concept, I've been asking myself these questions. Why haven't we got one yet? Like, why hasn't the first city been created? Why hasn't it become a reality yet? And the second question is, if it were to become a reality, what would be needed for it to run successfully? So how do we ensure that once we build the first city, it remains successful? So I've been following technological advancements, and I believe and I see in them great potential that can contribute to the creation of the first resource-based economy city, or bringing the whole thing global, really. And yeah, so I'm just going to try to explain how these technologies will make the creation of a resource-based economy much much closer. I see someone's writing in the chat, but can you, Charlotte, tell me if someone in the chat is saying something that I need to know? I hope you got that. Anyways, so just a deeper look at these two questions. So why haven't we got, why doesn't a resource-based economy city or anything exist yet? So there are two things that we need to create the first city. The first thing is we need to raise, well, we need resources, we need physical resources, and we need human resources too, because there's no machine that will just make a city out of nowhere. So we need those two things. And the most common views on how we can reach a resource-based economy city would be, one, the mainstream view is raise enough money to gather all the resources and pay all the people that have the technical capabilities to build such a system. And that's controversial already within the community, because people say, oh, we're talking about living without money, we shouldn't use money. I am not going to get into that, guys. So maybe we can talk about that some other place and time, but I don't want to focus on that today. And the second thing, the second strategy that a lot of people are talking about is transitioning gradually to a resource-based economy, like sharing resources, volunteering, sharing skills, like time banks, if you know what those are, but kind of without the money. So they're trying to look for a more collaborative approach where it kind of starts maybe more from the grass, like from the people up. And while both of these are theoretically possible, they could really happen, they are colossal challenges, just given the size and the complexity of the project. The resources, you need an insane amount of resources to build the first city, lots of work, technical skills, and just pulling it off technically, organizing the whole thing is a huge challenge. So what would be needed once, say we manage to gather everything and build the first city, what would be needed for it to run successfully? This is what I'm interested in. So for the first city to be fail-proof, it would need two fundamental things. And when I say fail-proof, I just mean that it, ignoring asteroid blowing up Earth or anything, but just like from day-to-day life, what would be needed for it to run smoothly? So first of all, we're talking about a moneyless society here. So it's crucial, and I'll explain why the next slide. It's crucial that it creates an abundance of resources needed to provide everyone with a high quality of life. That will eliminate scarcity and the need of money. The second thing is that these resources need to be produced. If we need them, we have to produce them in some way. So it must be possible for the whole system to be completely automated, self-sufficient and sustainable, because the resources also, we can't use them all up, because otherwise that would fail too. So no human labor should be required. So when somebody doesn't want to do something, like say theoretically, nobody has any interest in growing food, then we need machines that are capable of growing food. Otherwise we go back to a scarce environment and needing money. So resources must be produced is basically the bottom line. So the common view on money, and this is kind of understanding why creating abundance and overcoming scarcity is so important, is this. Money, most people see money as just a tool that facilitates trade by representing value. And while money does often represent something of value to us, it is only useful when that thing is scarce. It is available in limited quantity. So money actually really represents, if you think about it, it represents something of value, but it also has to be scarce. So money becomes obsolete when abundance is created. So just two silly examples, but if you think about value, how valuable is the air that you breathe? And you can do this, just play around with these examples. Think of something valuable. The air that you breathe is completely valuable, yet normally, I know there's China, like they were selling bottled air, something crazy, but normally you can't sell it. but say all of the air was sucked out of the atmosphere and there was a giant building with air in, people would be paying millions to get into that building. They'd give anything because that's why it's valuable. However, it's abundant, so nobody pays for it. Same thing if iPhones were to grow on trees. It's a stupid example, but if they were growing on trees and literally there were more iPhones than people could pick, nobody would go to the iStore or what it's called, the iPhone shops and spend 1,000 euros on an iPhone or dollars or whatever. So you see how once something is abundant, you can't sell it anymore if it's accessible and abundant. So that's why I'm fascinated with technologies that create abundance. So a little story just to better understand this. Is abundance versus scarcity. It's just a little story featuring Napoleon and the king of Siam or Siam? I can't remember. I always get mixed up. I think it's Siam. So when Napoleon III hosted the king of Siam, the people that were working for Napoleon, they were served with, it was a banquet, so they were served with silver utensils or cutlery. Those
Hello.
working, hey Elias, welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
can you mute yourself while I'm giving the presentation unless you have any questions? Thanks. So as I was saying, the people that were working for Napoleon were served with silver utensils. Those working for the king of Siam were served with gold, and the king himself was served with aluminium. And some of you might be saying, what, aluminium? Seriously? But at the time, that was the rarest metal on Earth. It was rather than gold. So so that's why it was considered an honor at that time. And aluminium per se as an element is extremely abundant on our planet. However, it's not available in its pure form, so it can't be extracted without the necessary technology. And that is why in the 1840s it was so rare. So further along came a technology called electrolysis, and that allowed aluminium to be extracted from the earth in a very cheap fashion. And now aluminium's become so abundant that we just wrap it around in food and use it with a throwaway mentality. So you can see how aluminium was always there. If you think about it with water too, I mean, we're covered in water, yet there are people dying of thirst. It's not because water isn't available, it's just because we don't have the technology needed to access it and make the water drinkable or extract the aluminium. So the same thing that happened with aluminium back in those days can happen today with many resources that we perceive now as scarce, but are actually just inaccessible. They're abundant, but we can't access them, such as clean drinking water, energy, all the way to rare elements such as gold. They're talking about asteroid mining, which is something absolutely crazy. So yeah, this is one of the most important things that I want you guys to take away today. And it's the understanding of linear thinking versus exponential thinking. And throughout all of evolution, we have mostly lived in linear environments and lived linear experiences. And we tend to think, therefore, in linear fashion. However, technology is advancing exponentially, and we can't comprehend how fast it's accelerating and what it will lead to. We're not that good at looking at the future and understanding what could happen. So just as an experiment to kind of get you familiar with linear versus exponential thinking, imagine two people that walk 30 steps. The first person takes 30 linear steps. He takes one step, and then another, and then another. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, every step adds 1 every time. The second person takes 30 exponential steps, which means that every step he takes, he travels the double of the distance that he's traveled previously. So he takes one step, double that, it's 2, double that again, it's 4, double again, it's 8, 16, 32, 64, etc., and so on. So while it's fairly easy for us to imagine the first person walking 30 normal steps, I literally said, what's 30 steps? It'll probably be a tennis court. And I actually calculated it. I looked on Google at the length, and it is pretty much to the meter, the length of a tennis court. So even I, while making this presentation, didn't have any idea. I guessed, and I pretty much got it right. But when we try to imagine how much the second person walked, it's a lot harder to imagine how far did he travel? Did he travel 10 kilometers? Did he travel from one country to another? How far did he actually go? So try to guess now, just take a guess, keep it to yourself, and just see what happens in the next slide. So I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. And now we'll see 30 exponential steps, only 30 of them, so double each time, means 1 billion steps. That is enough to walk to the moon and back, or enough to walk around the world 26 times. So you can see how linear progress and exponential progress is really, really different, and it's really hard to get our head around. So in the beginning, it's not so bad because we're 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. It's still numbers that we're familiar with. But just a few steps further, we're already in the millions, and then a few more, and we're in the billions. So you can see that here's a silly diagram I just found on a website. I thought it was funny. And in the beginning, it's they're kind of almost the same. So you think, all of this is so predictable, and you'll actually see in the next slide that it seems in the beginning that linear technologies have an advantage of exponential ones. In the beginning, they're kind of tricky to spot. However, it takes very little time, and you just absolutely have this explosion that you just didn't realize, oh my God, this is accelerating so much faster than I would have thought. So this is why it's important, why we can't look back, for example, at the past 10 years and say, oh, well, this is how far technology has come, so we'll probably see a similar improvement in the next 10 years. No, it's going to accelerate more and more as time goes by. And that's really why I want you guys to start thinking about and start exploring when you see any news of any kind of progress. So here's another chart, and this one kind of explains it better. So many technologies are advancing exponentially. However, in the beginning, they can be deceptive. So as you can see here, you've got the linear technology, and it kind of takes off. And it's just, the linear one is just the straight line. And you can see that it leaves the exponential technology behind for quite a while. And if you're investing in a technology, or if you're studying or researching a specific technology that is exponential, you can get really demotivated. I mean, look for how long you seem to have zero progress whatsoever, nothing significant. And you say, you know what, there might be potential in this, but look at the linear technology, it's going so much faster. However, after a bit, you start getting this curve and this knee, and it's just this point here where it meets again, and it takes very little time for the exponential technology to completely leave the linear one behind. And this is what we call disruption in most industries today. And I'm going to give you an example now of Kodak. So I think most of you are familiar with Kodak. In 1996, it was at the top of its game. It was worth 28 billion, and it employed over 140,000 people. So it was pretty massive. 20 years before that, before it was at the top of its game, it had actually invented the first digital camera, and you can see that in this picture here. So look at the size of it, how impractical it was compared to today's cameras. It performed pitifully. It only took 0.01 megapixel photos. It took 23 seconds to record the image, and it was in black and white, and it saved the image to a tape drive. I mean, it was pretty terrible compared to the analog cameras that they had those days. And Kodak, when it discovered this, it kind of laughed at this technology and said, you know what, we're making way more money printing photos and selling the cameras and whatever. So that's what we're gonna stick to. And they did that. So fast forward a couple of decades, and from the creation of the first digital camera, and Kodak in 2012 filed for bankruptcy. And in the same year, Instagram was bought by Facebook for $1 billion, and Instagram only had 13 employees. So you can see how a digital technology that like Instagram, that stores photos digitally, only used 13 people, it covers the entire globe, and it's still worth $1 billion. And the same thing has happened to loads of industries. Imagine Blockbuster versus Netflix, or I don't know, just the CD and audio industry and Spotify or iTunes or whatever. So really we're seeing a lot of analog, basically, technologies which progress linearly, being absolutely left in the dark by digital technologies which progress exponentially. So here's just a graph to show you guys. You can see from the first cameras to pretty much the 2000s, all photos were pretty much analog. And then you can see here how the analog photos just take a complete dip with the invention of well, not the invention because it was invented in the 80s, but it just takes a complete dip as soon as digital cameras start performing as well as the analog ones, and then they completely leave them in the dark. So you can see here how that literally happened with the photos taken every year. That said, this is already getting into the kind of, I hope this will already start giving you some hope as to why these technologies can make a resource-based economy more attainable. There's a phenomenon called dematerialization and demonetization. And if we look at it, the digital camera killed Kodak, and now smartphones are replacing digital cameras and tons of other gadgets that we used to have to buy separately. So this is what these two phenomena are. And if you have a look here, when a technology is first invented, the digital technology we're talking about, they can be extremely expensive and inefficient. So just having a look at video conferencing in 1982, you'd have to buy a physical device and you'd spend $250,000. GPS, same year, $100,000. Digital voice recorder, $2,500. And all of this sums up, all of this is free in our smartphones today that we pay $1,000 for, or probably even less. You can get them for a couple hundred. And we've got packed in them technologies that just a few decades ago would have cost almost $1 million. So this is how fast technology is advancing and how much access we're getting to things like amazing technologies. So, okay, here's just a little video to kind of show you this dematerialization process. So I don't think you'll get any audio, but it just shows you the desk. What the desk would look like and how everything is being replaced by digital stuff. So you'll probably recognize Excel, Amazon. It just shows you how one device can actually replace loads of other devices, Skype for a phone. Yeah, Wikipedia, Google Apps, PayPal. So you probably recognize most of these logos anyways. And pretty much not many people now would buy an MP3 recorder or I don't know, or a map. I don't buy maps anymore. So so yeah, that's kind of just a fun video to show you guys. So I'm going to talk now about, just let me drink a sec. In this presentation, I'll be talking to you guys about 3 exponential technologies, and the first, and maybe one of the most exciting in the immediate future, is digital technologies and Moore's law, which is the law that basically explains why it's exponential. So digital technologies are advancing according to Moore's law. So any technology that basically becomes digital, we saw with the camera, from the analog camera to the digital camera, it jumps on this curve that it basically represents progress in an exponential fashion. So it's always accelerating instead of being linear. So Moore's law basically says that every 2 years, the number of transistors, which is basically the physical switch, you could say, that represents the zeros and ones in any digital device, those will double in a circuit approximately every 2 years. So basically what it means, what that really means, is every 2 years, computers, phones, and all digital gadgets become twice as possible for the same cost. So if you have a look at this graph here, you can see in 1992, 1 million transistors, which again are those switches, would cost you $222 to produce. In 2012, they cost 6 cents, and this is 2012. So 5 more years have gone by, so it'll be even cheaper now. Here we can see also the internet users in the world. Did I skip a? Oh yeah, sorry, I don't know why it didn't show this. The bandwidth performance also. I'm calling you right now with mobile data with 4G. And I've got unlimited data right now. Back in 1999, it used to be $1,245 per gigabits per second of data. In 2012, it's less than $10, and now I'm calling you I pay 20 euros a month and I've got free unlimited data. So that's pretty insane to see how fast it's advancing. Internet users in the world, you can see how there are hardly any in the first days of the internet. In early 2000s, you can say halfway through the first decade of the 2000s, we had about 1 billion. Now we've probably reached the 3 billion already, and by 2020s probably we'll have ubiquitous internet. There are projects like Elon Musk, even Mark Zuckerberg. They're trying to get internet to be streamed onto the entire globe, literally giving everyone free internet access. So that's a lot of new minds, a lot of new ideas being connected to the internet that can share knowledge, can contribute to projects, etc., make their voices heard. And so some impressive digital advancements that I want to show you guys right now, just to understand how much abundance these technologies are creating. Maasai warrior in the middle of Kenya right now has better mobile communications than the US president did 25 years ago. If that warrior is on a smartphone using Google, he'll have more access to information than the president did 15 years ago. So you can see how something like the president of the United States probably is provided with the best of the best. And now a warrior in the middle of Kenya can have, just a few decades later, can have better access than that for incredibly cheap prices, because they're becoming really affordable right now. And just to show you some advancements that I think are really impressive. So 50% of jobs are now at risk of automation in the next 20 years. AI and computers already outperforming humans in things that just a decade ago seemed impossible. You might know Kasparov, the chess player, who laughed at the computer that attempted to beat it. And then I can't remember if it was 1, 2, or 3 years later, he got beat by that very same, by a computer. So again, from saying something is impossible to just 3 years later, the world champion lost. Now from chess, which was fairly simple, I guess, compared to Go, Go is basically a game that has an insane amount of possibilities. It would be impossible for a computer to calculate all the possible outcomes. So you really need to get a computer to learn and to, basically, it's really an artificial intelligence that's learning how the game works, etc. And they didn't expect Go, like they didn't expect a computer to beat Go in the next 10 years. And they've already managed to do that now. So the world champion has been beaten by a computer. Jeopardy, if you know the TV show, well, it's a game or whatever you call it. IBM's Watson beat that. Recently, Dota 2, which is a video game, the world champions were defeated by OpenAI, by like Elon Musk supports OpenAI. So literally a computer AI, artificial intelligence, is learning how to play a game like a human would and outperforming humans. Speech recognition, I think that's Microsoft. Image recognition, and we'll have a look at that in the next slide. So they're more accurate than humans already. Something that I saw just 2 days ago, they showed an AI 2 minutes of a person playing Super Mario, you know, the 2D game. The artificial intelligence managed to recreate the game engine. So basically reprogram the game just by looking at gameplay, which is absolutely amazing. Self-driving cars, they have a lower, they're not perfect yet, but they already have a lower accident rate compared to human drivers. Teaching assistants, a US university, I can't remember which one it was, they used a robot, a bot basically, to assist the students during the year, and nobody realized that it was a bot. Writing articles, AIs can gather information and synthesize articles faster than a human can. Spotting cancer, they're becoming better at diagnosing cancer than professionals. Generative design, and that's basically a really cool new technology that's coming along for engineers, etc. Basically, it's like 3D modeling, but it's using kind of evolution. So you put in the materials that you want and what your object should be able to do and the physical properties it should have. And it starts kind of like evolution. It just uses new ideas and sees which fail and which are positive. And then it just reaches a really efficient design from that. Just this iterative process that keeps on learning from itself. And then if you guys know Shazam, you can identify and recommend songs. So I'm just going to pick one out of these, image recognition. So 10 years ago, researchers thought that getting a computer to tell the difference between a cat and a dog would be almost impossible. However, a few years ago, an open source artificial intelligence called Darknet managed not only to distinguish the dog from cat, but tell the breed of the dog, which is pretty incredible. And it took 20 seconds to analyze that image. Now, with a new system called YOLO, which is you only look once, you've got real-time object recognition. So from 20 seconds to analyze an image, you're down to 20 milliseconds. And it's general purpose. So most AIs right now, like deep learning, they get good at doing one thing, but they can't process language how humans can. They don't understand the world surrounding them. So that's kind of their limitation. And I kind of think it's a positive one for most situations, but I'll leave that out. However, this one is general purpose for identifying images. So it's not only good at recognizing dogs, whatever you feed it, whether it's a fruit, so you can have a machine grab a fruit, or whether it's an animal, an object, a car, people, cancer, whatever you want it to learn how to recognize, it can do so. So this is open source, and it's really exciting to see just how fast it's progressing and the amazing things that it can be used for. It can automate a lot of things, so I'm pretty excited about it. Exponential growth of computing. So here you can see kind of Moore's law. So this is the calculations per second that you can achieve with a $1,000 computer. So you can see how for most of the time here, it kind of looks pretty boring, as it usually does with exponential technologies. By the year 2000, more or less, a $1,000 computer could give you as much processing power, more or less, as an insect brain. Then, more or less now, we're a bit over, I think, a mouse brain. They're saying that by 2037, I think, you can look at Ray Kurzweil for these predictions. You'll get a human brain worth of processing power per $1,000. And look how fast it explodes. Just a decade later, you've got enough processing power that would be the equivalent of putting all the human brains together in the world. So it's incredible how fast this is going. So this is why I'm saying we can't look back at the previous 10 years and say, oh, the next 10 will be similar. We're going to see so much change that we won't be able to keep up. That's why Elon Musk and others are trying to even merge us with technology so we can keep up just with the sheer rate of acceleration. So that's digital technologies. Now I'll be showing you solar technology. Well, it would be energy, but there is so much going on with renewables right now and other sources of energy. I'm just going to cover solar for this presentation. I think I'm going over time already, so I'm just going to focus on the current generation of solar. The next generation is probably going to be cheaper and even more efficient, so the future is looking really bright. So as aluminium was abundant, but inaccessible in the story of Napoleon, the same thing goes for energy. So just looking at solar, the sun provides the world with more energy in an hour than the entire world consumes globally in a year. That's an insane amount of energy hitting us every single hour. Traditional photovoltaic panels also follow an exponential law called Swanson's law, and that basically means that, what it says is the price of photovoltaics drops 20% every time global production doubles, and that is due to the process becoming more efficient, using less silicon, etc. So here's a graph of Swanson's law. Make sure you notice at the bottom here, it's of shipments in megawatts, and here's the cost per watt. it's not in time. And you can see how it started off at $100 per watt, and then not so shortly after, but a few decades later, it was $10 per watt. In the 2000s, it's around 5. 2010, it's about 1. And now we're going further and further down. And it's really interesting to see how we're already reaching grid parity in many countries, which means that it costs the same to get your energy from fossil fuels. It's basically economically the same whether you get them from renewables or from fossil fuels. And as this law is exponential, it will only get better, and fossil fuels will be left in the dark. Here's one other. So, by the way, if you want to know more about energy, you can ask me later. But just do some research. You'll see amazing progress being done with, for example, the next generation panels, which are perovskite, I think. Those are just amazing progress. So exponential biology is one that I think has incredible potential. So just to give you a feel for it, our DNA, so our genetic code, is composed of 3.2 billion base pairs. That is, if you imagine a 1,000 page book with writing on both sides of each page, it's 300 of those. So it's the equivalent of 300,000 pages of data. In 2001, the first human genome was sequenced. It took 1 year and cost $100 million. It was an incredible feat. Ever since that discovery, the cost and performance has been outpacing Moore's law by 3 times. So imagine how fast Moore's law is going, how fast digital technologies are going. By a lot in the field of biology, lots of technologies are going 3 times faster than that, which is absolutely amazing. And I remember I was working in a lab, because that's why I was doing it in high school, and they were telling me how the machines that they bought for millions just a few years ago were worth nothing now. So now, for example, from 1 year and $100 million, now it costs $1,000 to sequence a genome, and the next gen sequencers are already looking for $100 in 3 hours per genome. So really fast progress going on. And with technologies like CRISPR-Cas9, which is basically this new tool that can edit DNA with precision, and stem cells too. So we're going to see some absolutely amazing breakthroughs. I won't go into what CRISPR and Cas9 can do, but if you want, you can ask me more about that at the end of the presentation. So futurists are already predicting that there'll be more advancements in medicine in the next 10 years than in the past century combined. So that is why we can't look at the past 10 years and say the next 10 will be the same. And some future predictions, I don't know if these are in the next 10 years, but very close. Our phones will be able to diagnose health issues, and we'll be able to access personalized medicine given, personalized, I mean, according to our genetics. And I've seen even some technologies that are looking at having kind of laboratories that you can purchase and have at home with bacteria that can synthesize the compounds needed to create medicine, etc. So we're even looking at a future where we don't even need hospitals, possibly. So that's already something really interesting for resource-based economy cities. You're dematerializing a whole structure that is worth, I mean, if anyone knows the US and the whole healthcare system there, you know how much money is in it. So it's really exciting to me. Here you can see also a graph that Moore's law, which is this one, is already exponential, and they flattened this. And look how fast the cost of genome sequencing is going. So it's so fast, it's really difficult to comprehend. And not only is it exciting because the cost of doing this is going down, it's making it more accessible to researchers too, which can contribute further into this research. And that is why things are just, it's kind of like a snowball effect. It's just going to get bigger and bigger. So you can see the publications in genome editing up to 2014 were about 500 if you sum up all of this. In 2015 alone, it was more than all of these years combined. And you can see how in 2016 it's just absolutely exploding. So research-wise too will lead to even more technologies and more discoveries. So we're seeing amazing progress. So back to resource-based economy a bit. So we've talked about digital technologies being exponential, energy-related technologies being exponential, and biology being exponential. But how will these technologies make building a resource-based economy, city, or a world easier? So I hope with these examples, I've already made it kind of clear that scarce, expensive resources will be made cheap, accessible, and abundant. It will be possible to eliminate the need for human labor in countless fields. And it will, I think the most exciting thing really is it will lower the cost and requirements, whether they're monetary or resource-based. They'll reduce what is needed to build the first city. And that's what I really look forward to. So if the city right now would cost $1 billion, probably more, I think, but I don't know if they've put a budget on that. But in the future, it could cost 10 times less and be so much more possible to build. So in these last slides, I'll be providing some practical examples of basically human needs, so things that all of us can relate to, and how they can be easily met by these upcoming technologies. So we've talked already a bit about energy, a bit about health. I'd like to point out I won't be covering water, mostly because water is pretty much related to energy, as in if energy is abundant, then we can make clean drinking water abundant too. One thing that we all need is food. One of the most of the tasks that are needed to grow food, labor-wise, they can be automated easily. And the use of sensors, so humidity, soil quality, whether the crops have any diseases, etc., can lead to much more efficient yields. So to give you an idea of how these technologies can already have an impact on food right now, the US, the United States of America, are the world's first largest exporter of agricultural products in the world. The second one, and I discovered this week on Facebook and I was quite surprised, are the Netherlands. So the Netherlands are tiny compared to the United States, yet they're leading the way using technology to grow food. And now they're the second largest exporter. And that's despite the size of their country. They're using sensors to see if plants are getting sick. They're using greenhouses to grow all year round. They're using, I think they're starting using vertical farms too. So they're really at the forefront of technology when it comes to food production. And Netherlands are quite famous for bringing out entrepreneurial people. So in a lot of other areas, they're also leading the way in many technologies of these kinds. So a neat example of automation and sensors is the open source project called FarmBot. So this is the this little thing in the image down here. It's like a 3D printer, but it's basically like your own kind of farm, and it's almost like a game. I've got a video here that I'll show you, just so you can kind of see how it works and what it can do already. And it's open source. So I'm going to mute this actually. It's open source, which means basically that anyone can contribute to it. You can buy the parts yourself or you can buy from them. So you can see here it's planting seeds and it's incredibly precise where you plant them. So it knows where they've been planted, so it can water it accurately. So we're not wasting water anymore. We're just giving it the least amount of water that is needed. The same can be used for pesticides if that's what somebody wants to be done, but I'd rather go without them. They can handle different types of crops. So it's really like, you can see here all the different kinds that they've planted in this batch. And it kind of reminds me of a game like Farmville. If you guys remember that game on Facebook, you can literally, here you can see you can drag and drop the vegetables or whatever you want to grow. And then it kind of just automates the whole process. And they'll be using sensors. The CAD is now up for free, like the whole model is for free, and you can literally look at the whole 3D model, you can contribute to it, and sensors are digital technologies too, so it will be getting cheaper and cheaper. So I think there's a lot of potential in this. So yeah, farmbot.io if anyone wants to put this in their backyard. Pretty awesome. So automation, however, isn't just stopping at growing food. The processing and cooking can be done automated as well. So again, here's another short video. And this one is a robotic chef. Maybe some of you have seen this, developed by Moley Robotics. So I'll play this. I think you guys don't have audio, so I'm going to try to just give you the main points that it's talking about. But this is the robot itself. So imagine having a 5-star chef cooking your meals for you. This is what this robot is trying to accomplish. It's the first robot that can clean up after itself, learn new recipes, and automate cooking and learn intelligently. So the arms and hands are really advanced. They can pretty much do anything and learn from human movement. They can crack an egg, they can pour liquids, they can clean up after themselves. So it's kind of almost like a video game. They record the movements, and you can record the movements of famous chefs, like even Chef Ramsay, which is kind of the not so pleasant, I guess, chef, but he's really famous. You could try his cooking without actually going and being yelled at. So yeah. So just to bring this all together in resource-based economy city, what could food actually look like? So this is a diagram of a vertical farm. So you can see here, you'd have on the bottom floor, you'd have a grocery market. Obviously the food would be free, you wouldn't have to pay for it in a resource-based economy. Upstairs, you've got a restaurant. If you're really lazy, you wouldn't have to even go into the restaurant. You could have a drone send you the food. But I guess it's nice to get out every now and then, see some people and be social. Then above you'd have the water needed to run the whole system, and above you food would be grown automatically. And basically it's bringing efficiency to the next level, because per square meter you can increase the efficiency by over 100-fold compared to traditional agriculture. I even saw an article the other day that was saying they were claiming they could go over 300-fold. So it also reduces the water by over 70%. And this, I got this from futurism.com. It's a whole infographic, and you can find that easily. It's called The Anatomy of a Vertical Farm. And it's much bigger than this, the infographic. They use aquaponics and aquaculture. You could even use aeroponics, which uses a mist and uses even less water. It eliminates the need for pesticides because all the food can be grown organically, and eliminates the need to transport the food. So it's available locally. For those of you who do eat meat, a sustainable and ethical solution may be possible in the near future for that too. And it could be available like vertical farms in a building, in a resource-based economy city, not in farms far out, which would mean handling cattle, transporting all the meat, processing it, etc. So meeting the current demand and ever rising demand, given that the population is rising and are looking at the Western lifestyle, meeting that demand for meat with today's methods is unethical, it's unsustainable, and would destroy our entire planet. It's just not possible. We're cutting down so much of the rainforest to just feed there's not enough land on the planet to feed everyone with traditional methods. So in 2013, a news went viral of this 3D printed burger which was grown in the lab. And while it solved a lot of problems, it produced really high quality meat, eliminated all imperfections that meat would normally have when coming from an animal. It solved the problem of land usage, water, the animal waste, killing the actual animal for ethical reasons, and the transportation of the animal. However, the cost of the burger was, that one burger that you can see in the image cost $325,000 to produce. So not so accessible. So this was 2013. Right now, that price has gone down to $11.36. That's already starting to almost be accessible. And as the technology advances, it will be increasingly cheaper. And the fun thing about this is it's not only with beef, it can be used for chicken too, and they even want to use it to make leather. So that's food. And now the last section that I'm going to talk about, and then I finished, is manufacturing. So 3D printing is, I think most of you have heard about it, but right now it's absolutely exploding. So 3D printing is also known as additive manufacturing, and it's very difficult to traditional manufacturing because it adds to an object. It creates an object from nothing and it just adds material to it instead of taking away, which is usually what happens. And one machine, one 3D printer, is able to produce multiple objects of different sizes, shapes, whatever you want to print, it can adapt. So it's highly customizable, and it can finish the process from start to finish without producing any waste. Once you used to only be able to 3D print pretty useless objects like just plastic toys. Yoda was produced a lot. Phone covers and stuff like that, and they were made out of plastic, fairly boring plastic with one color, etc. However, now it's possible to print in tons of different colors, all within the same print. Different materials, the same printer can print different materials, and that is leading the way to printing things like food, medical implants, organs grown out of stem cells, cars, and even buildings. And I'm going to be touching on these last two because I think these are maybe the most expensive things that we're looking at to building a resource-based economy city. So 3D printed cars. This car is not a concept that you can see on the picture. This is called Blade. It is a 3D printed supercar. It's got amazing performance and it weighs as much as a Formula One car. So if you think about the car industry right now, they're so entrenched with the fossil fuel industry that it took, well, Elon Musk, for those of you who know him, or Tesla, the company that he founded, they basically created these amazing cars which are still pretty damn expensive, but they're really starting to lead the way towards electrical vehicles, which is what EV stands for. And so this Gigafactory, which produces these cars, and if you haven't seen it, it's an amazing factory, highly automated. So it's a really good example of a step towards what a resource-based economy factory could look like. However, it cost $5 billion to set that one factory up. So think about just the cost to build the first city. If we want transportation in that city and we just want cars in that city, that's $5 billion alone just to set up the factory. So that's an insanely high price tag just to produce cars. However, with 3D printing, a car factory the cost could be reduced by over 50 times. And actually the people that produced this car, Blade, you can Google it to find more information about it. That company claims that they can bring the cost of a small car manufacturing plant down to 4 million. So from 4 billion to 4 million to produce a car factory. So future of manufacturing is looking pretty damn good. And 3D printing is just at its infancy. It's in the future, there are some predictions by Kurzweil where, and I highly recommend looking at him. He's the chief engineer at Google, and he's a really well-known futurist with an 86% track record of really bold predictions. And the ones that haven't come true were just off by a few years, or not incorrect, just time-wise they weren't correct. So he's got an amazing track record. And he predicts that by in the next 30 years or so, we'll be seeing nano foglets, I think he calls it, basically these nanobots that will be able to create any object on demand. They'll be able to create your meals, they'll be able to create your car, your phone, digital, whatever is required. You'll be able to just create them out of pretty much thin air. So we're not talking about next century here, we're talking about in the next few decades. So that's just to give you an idea of something that now sounds impossible, but again, looking at these technologies, I'm hoping that you're kind of seeing how this exponential progress can very likely lead to this. And the last example I want to give you is buildings, how they're becoming more accessible. So right now, my mum told me the other day that in England, they've got this, they're building these pods for homeless people that are like fully furnished and everything, like these really small pods. And they're like £40,000 to make. So just keep that in mind. That's like not even a house, it's a pod. And a house right now, I think at least 100,000 will be the price, if not more. I'm not so sure, but they're pretty damn expensive. And 3D printing buildings it's fast, it's efficient, and it's really customizable, which I think is really interesting for the current designs of resource-based economy, because any shape that you want to build is possible. We're not limited to just square, like flat walls, just square geometric shapes anymore. We can build incredibly geometrically complex buildings for no additional cost. It makes no difference to the computer where it's printing the material. So more and more companies are starting to, oh, by the way, I said that because most of the, if you didn't catch that, most of the buildings in a resource-based economy are round, and Jacques explains multiple times why they're more efficient for many reasons. So more and more companies are starting new projects with 3D buildings. They're 3D printing buildings. They're using many different approaches and materials which are being tested. So we've got high-performing concrete, which could last, a house built with high-performance concrete could last up to 10,000 years, I think, if I remember correctly. Earth, so there's a company in Italy called WASP, I think, and they're looking at creating housing out of literally earth. And you might think, oh, earth sounds kind of silly, and right now they are focusing on disaster relief. But yeah, the houses made out of cob, for example, are selling for the millions in England right now. In Devon, you can, like, they're really sought after. So cob is a really good material for building too, and that would lower the prices of the materials down dramatically. There are companies that are using salt, ceramic, and wood, stone and sand, and even now in the Netherlands, they're about to finish the first bridge. 3D printed out of steel, and I think reinforced with concrete. So I'm just going to give you one last example, and then I'm done. To give you this last example, it's about this 3D printed small house that was 3D printed by Apiscore, which is a company in Russia. It's a 38 square meter home, and it was printed in the middle of the winter near Moscow, and it was printed in 24 hours for the price of $10,134 in materials. So that's an incredibly big difference in the term of cost of materials. And of course, you're not wasting any materials, which is the beautiful thing. The construction industry leaves a tremendous amount of waste, and this leaves none. So here's just a video showing you guys the technology. I'll mute it because there's no audio. But this is the finished house. It's kind of round already, so they're already thinking like us. As you can see, this is the 3D printer building the house, and the beautiful thing is that it's printed on site. So literally you take the printer where you want to print it, and then you leave. You don't have to transport the house. Kind of like the prefab units, it will show this example too. In the resource-based economy, you require massive machinery to move the house, and of course that machinery needs to be built, and it would be expensive. Now with a 3D printer like this, all you need is the materials, and you put the 3D printer on, and you give it the design of the house that you'd like, and then it prints it. So that before that was showing you how they usually print them indoors and then bring them on site. This one, you bring the 3D printer on site, and it does the rest of the work. So, okay. So in conclusion, a future with abundant food, water, housing, clothing, energy, transportation, education, all of the things that we need and want, it's really not that far off. This presentation really did scratch the surface of all the technologies out there. There's so much more. I just put in a few highlights, but just I'll show you in the sources later. Just have a look at what is going on. It's unbelievable, the opportunities and the solutions that are being created out there. We're thinking, oh, we got to develop everything on our own. No, the technology is advancing so fast, and we can use these things to our advantage. We've got teams that are backed by so much money that we don't have at the moment, developing solutions that would be perfect to start up the resource-based economy. So all of these technological advancements will make it easier to build the first resource-based economy city and also to run it. And it's also exciting to me personally to see how even an individual or small group can start using these technologies to transition towards a resource-based economy and provide the world with some real life examples that can be replicated on a small scale, like an RBE home or an RBE village. So just sticking FarmBot in your backyard and becoming self-sufficient for food and not having to work with it, so you can go away on vacation and not worry about the weeds because it will do the weeding for you, and not worry about any of the other worries, I guess, that you'd have with leaving your veggies back home. You're able to do that now. So all of these technologies can be demonstrated now and today. And a few recommended materials, as I said, for the sources were futurism.com. I follow this page a lot for staying up to date with all these technological advancements. Abundance, The Future is Better Than What You Think. This is a book that I highly recommend, by Peter H. Diamandis and Steve Kotler. A lot of the graphs in this presentation were taken from his website, and he talks a lot more in depth about these technologies and really provides a positive vision for the future. The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil, the famous futurist working at Google. The Zero Marginal Cost Society by Jeremy Rifkin. So those are just a few sources, and I can provide more if you guys are interested. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed. I'm not sure time-wise if I went way above the time limit. I hope I didn't. But yeah, that was the presentation. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. That was absolutely brilliant. And every single minute of your presentation was time worth spent. I think I'm probably talking for everyone here. And before I turn the meeting over for discussion, I just wanted to mention my immediate thoughts when I see this, and that's basically how your presentation so much ties earlier presentations together. So I remember the presentation by Leo and Alexander, for instance, and they talked about their ideas for the first RBE city and how they would want to build that. And I'm seeing the technologies that they would need for their plans. You're presenting a lot of them. And also when Andrew talked to us about the effects of automation on the workforce, by presenting how increased abundance wipes out so many jobs, because in the past more technology meant that jobs were provided in these new technological fields. But with computers and 3D printing and stuff like that, you don't have at all the creation of that kind of job. So you have a reduction of money, the need for money. Everything is getting cheaper. You've got people being freed up from boring tasks. Everything is pointing in the direction of an RBE. And I'd just like to finish my thoughts on this by emphasizing what Jacques also states so clearly in his book, The Best That Money Can't Buy. The question is now mindset. Everything we need is there. But what we really have to focus on is getting people to shift their ideas about scarcity, about what the way things should be. So really brilliant, Nicholas. And I'd now like to...
Thanks. Can I add the last thing that I forgot to say in the end? The thing also that I personally believe, I won't guarantee that this is the case, but from what I've seen is that we're heading, like technology itself. I mean, any company, any person that is interested in making money or profit, if you have a look at the most valuable companies right now, most of them are tech companies, they're exploding. And technology per se is creating abundance, making things cheaper, making them more abundant. The Kodak example, I took that from Peter Diamandis, I think is brilliant. How they refused the technology because of profit, and then they got screwed by themselves pretty much because they discovered it. So to me, I think an RBE is inevitable. I think technology will lead us there because technology is creating abundance. And while we can create artificial scarcity as much as we want, another group that is interested in outperforming whatever company that was, basically it's all going to become obsolete. So I don't know if I explained that well, but I see it kind of as being inevitable.
Yes,
So that's also something I wanted to leave you guys with. A lot of people saying, oh, money will always rule. I don't believe that. I think that technology will naturally take us to a resource-based economy because it's creating abundance, and abundance basically makes money obsolete. So
yeah,
I see no other choice.
that's exactly what I was
thank you again.
trying to say.
Yeah, you reminded me to say that. I just wanted to.
And then it is really such an important point. The only thing that is really standing in the way now is mindset. So that's where activism, where RBE education and activities are so important. Okay, I'd like to give everybody a chance now to have 2 or 3 minutes to ask questions, comments. So if you'd like to say something, just give me a sign and you can, yeah. So, Jennifer.
Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Hey, Nicholas, that was amazing. I loved it every second. So thank you for that. I do have I'm dealing with the same thing. Mindset is the issue. So on Facebook, I always talk about RBE. And then there was some people saying, hey, look at the new iPhone. It's coming out for $1,000. And right away, I said, that's pure capitalism. And then a lot of people complain and like, no, it's not capitalism. It's just things getting expensive. There's more new technology. I'm like, no, it should be opposite. It should be cheaper. And then what would you suggest, or how would you explain to these people that don't get that? And they expect everything newer should be more expensive. And how do we get Apple to come down to us and understand what we're trying to create, that they could get involved instead of going the normal way and keep on making things more expensive to fit into the capitalistic society? Just want to ask you guys, what do you think? What can we do?
Should I answer that? I can't hear you, Charlotte. Charlotte, we can't hear you. You're muted.
I'm going to assume everything is directed towards you unless otherwise stated.
Okay. All right. So thank you again. So something that I think might be funny, like a fun way to approach this would be to show them how much it costs to produce an iPhone and how much they're selling it for. They might get kind of annoyed when they know that it costs like a third to produce, and then the rest is just pure profit. So that might annoy them and might get them to think twice about it. As far as getting the big companies to come down to us, I don't know how we could do that. However, I'm pretty sure, as we've seen, like right now, it took Elon Musk, a billionaire, to change the car manufacturing industry. But we're already seeing with that example, in the future, it could be $4 million and you set your own thing up, and that can be organized much more, like in a much more doable way. So I wouldn't see why it wouldn't be possible in the future for smartphones, for computers and electronic devices to be produced locally as well, and in an open source fashion. So we're seeing a lot of automation going on already, like Foxconn's being automated, etc. So the machines can be anywhere. We don't have to go to China anymore. So those machines can be, we don't need to train people for the skill anymore. So those machines can be replicated, built anywhere in the world, and the same product will come out. So I think that in the near future, we could even possibly think about having digital technologies like digital devices being produced locally as well. And that would put Apple and all of the other companies out of business. So it's a possibility, but I can't vouch for it, to say.
Well, if I could just add one comment, that's the process of dialectics. The technology that they're using to make money with is actually going to be the thing that is going to destroy them, because as soon as more and more people get the things like 3D printing and are able to start doing these things on their own, at some point there's going to be a shift in the balance when it's just not possible to keep people paying these exorbitant amounts. That's what I think. Anyone else have a question or a comment?
I also wanted to add one last thing. How can I say it? It won't only be, so as I said, technology, I believe technology is bringing us naturally closer to a resource-based economy. However, I believe that the mindset will come naturally too, because I absolutely love the quote by Buckminster Fuller: to change a system, you don't fight against the existing reality, you create a better model that makes the existing one obsolete. And I deeply, deeply believe in that. That's why I'm studying robotics. My idea is to create, on a small scale or as big as possible, whatever's most doable, real life examples of showing people this is a village or this is a house that automates food production. Like, you buy this house, you build it once, and it covers all of your needs, or something like that, something to get people to think. So once you've got a system that provides free food, you're giving people the choice. Are you going to go into the resource-based economy city and get free food over there? Or are you going to go into, I don't know, Walmart's and buy your pesticide-abundant food over there and pay money for it? So I think free organic food or expensive chemical crap. So okay. I see the mindset coming along pretty easy once we put the system in place.
Yeah. I saw that Ilias has a question, and after him, Eric wants to say something. Ilias?
Hello, can you hear me? Can you see me? I'm Ilias from Greece. I back Nicholas, and he's my friend for a while. I am a mechanical engineer. I left my second largest city in Greece, Thessaloniki, after Athens, and came to my village, which is 150 people. It's a very, very small village, to start a self-sufficient farm. I'm currently doing farming with soil, and very hard because I don't have machinery also. But I want to build a greenhouse with hydroponics, so I can increase the productivity and get the money to start a visitable farm, okay, to teach people how they can succeed via automation, better and better food productions. There, with the money that I will produce, I will incorporate technologies for solar, for wind, and I will do a lot of projects DIY, because I'm a mechanical engineer. I have the background and I love to do stuff. And so everything that Nicholas said, if you want to start something, you have the mindset, and we all do, the most of us that are inside this mindset, but you have to do stuff after the mindset. So first comes the mindset, and then you must act. And you must act with your life. You must change your life sometimes, excuse my English, someday you must take the decision, as I did. I was very afraid. I didn't know farming until I was 35. I became a farmer. I didn't know farming. The past 3 years, I'm struggling because I don't have help from others, because when they hear farming, they run away because it's very hard in the soil to do it. And if you have not machinery, if you don't have machinery. But I'm very optimistic. The past 3 years, everything goes up, and I accumulate knowledge. Knowledge is the power. And when you when you incorporate a different mindset like the RBE, which is a very nice, the most beautiful system, I think, because you start to think all the planet all together and all the people all together, and you don't have boundaries. It's like when somebody, an astronaut outside Earth, he said that you cannot see countries or borders when you see the world in a whole. So I tell to all of my all that they are hearing now, and to my friend Nicholas, that we can do it, and we can start changing our life drastically, because if we do something like separating them, if we live in the city and we separate, how do you say it, the garbage for paper, we do recycle, okay, it's good. But if we go there to a job that helps large companies or banks, I worked as a mechanical engineer in a very large company, a gas company in Thessaloniki. But I saw that my job is well paid, but it cannot produce something. It's services. It's giving the gas only to the ones that have money to pay for the gas. I was customer service in one time and I cut the gas from a person that didn't have money to pay. Yeah. I was very upset that if you don't have money, then all your dignity, all your stuff ends.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point, Ilyas. That it's not enough just to think about these things, but we also have to do them. Yes. Yeah, brilliant example.
And we have to start the RBE for a farm, for our house, and then come together to form small villages RBE, yeah. And then a city. Okay. We cannot. Yeah, sorry for the time. We cannot wait Elon Musk to come and help us, because he's a company also. He has very nice ideas, but he wants to make profit.
I think that's a very good point, that we all have to, in whatever area we are in our lives, that each one of us can take action to make an RBE come even quicker. I have to cut you off now.
And come together.
Yeah. I have to cut you off now because time is limited, but thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope you come again and keep us up to date on how your farm is doing. It sounds great.
Yep, because this winter I will take a program from the European Union. Okay. I will take money. It's like and will make these things. I will make the hydroponics. Brilliant. Next year in summer, I think. So I will get imposted if you want.
Yeah, thanks.
So thank you very much for hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Eric, you wanted to say something, and then Jeff wants to say something.
And there is a lot of communities, like our fellow just a moment ago, that sustainable communities all out there around the world. So getting them connected would be advantageous. And then general transition with the monetary economy already and the political system we have here. What would the Venus Project do? Would they get involved, not in politics, but into the people? We have to get the majority of the mindset changed. So you got to get people off of the duopoly and the international corporations that probably will use this technology. And I've seen some examples of it in Dubai and other countries where they use Jack Fresco-esque designs and they plant it in some of their cities. So they are profiting already off the technology, but that's only going to last. That's only going to last for a moment. I was thinking, do we have any system for, because we have to transition from, we have to take the wealth from the economy and actual physical cash or commodity and bring it to the Venus Project. Have they considered ever using cryptocurrencies that aren't with the natural, like IMF and the central banking systems? And
Eric, I see that there is a TVP representative here at the meeting, but we are not representatives of TVP. So we cannot say anything about what the Venus Project is doing.
That's fine. I was just general questions like,
Okay.
what do you guys think, like to anybody, what would you guys think would be a good way to transfer from, like all of us have to work for a living. How do we put our work and effort to get back survival out of it? And I guess that's just through networking and people and seeing what jobs.
Yeah, that's a really broad question, and we don't have enough time really to talk about that.
That's fine.
It's
just to digest.
Yeah, I'm with you there 100%. And most of these presentations are actually all little things, all little parts of that whole transition thing. So, you know, maybe some future time we can focus more on that question in itself. But tonight I want to just keep it on the automation subject of Nicholas's presentation.
And I really digged a lot of his information, and I saw a lot of things that could connect together and working.
Yeah, brilliant, eh? Thanks a lot.
That is pretty smart.
Jeff?
Once again, thanks, Nicholas, for the great presentation. And anyways, where I come from on this, I'm running for mayor, as some of you might know, because I have to be the change I want to see. I suffered an accident a few years ago, and I'm in a wheelchair, which means money just comes in for me. I don't have to do anything to get money. The government supplies me because I'm Canadian, so I'm lucky in that extent. So I don't know if I should be saying this online, but my approach is kind of like a Trojan horse approach, where I'm going to go in. I don't want the money. So if I go in there and they offer me a six-figure salary, that's a six-figure salary I can donate to making every park in my town a greenhouse that can supply food. And then the markets come from there, and then tourism comes, and people want to buy food, and then it just becomes an overload. Anyways, that goes with what Nicholas was talking about, exponential growth. How I understand perfectly how it is, I just kind of wrapped it up a little. How do you make that simple? How can you easily tell people that just wait and watch?
I'm not sure, like you're asking me, can you specify your point a bit? I'm not too sure what the question is.
I talked a lot just to try to keep the time down. But you talked about an exponential growth where the curve just shoots up automatically. People won't just take that at face value. So how do you say it in more simple terms? Like, how can you get it across to people who aren't awake like us?
So basically your interest would be to know how to convey the information, the concepts I was trying to convey to you guys, to other people in regular life. Is that what you're asking?
No.
Sorry, I don't quite get the question.
The exponential growth part?
Yeah.
Like, kind of like you build it, they will come style type thing is how I see it. Because you invest a little in something and then it just booms.
No, that's not really how it would work. Because, for example, Kodak, I'll go back to that example. Kodak developed this camera, and I mean, it takes a lot of money and really like experts in very complicated fields to develop such technologies. So it's not a bit of money and it booms. What I'm saying is the result of these technologies, kind of the point I'm trying to convey is capitalism is self-destructing.
Oh, yeah.
And we can use that self-destruction because they're making all of these new technologies, because infinite growth, we need more infinite growth, right? So they're investing in these technologies, and we can use those technologies, the fruits of those technologies, to get closer to a resource-based economy. I'm not talking about us as resource-based economy activists investing in exponential technologies. I'm saying they're already happening.
Yeah, so I wasn't talking about an investment, but us hashing it out basically answered my question. So thanks.
Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't really get the question.
No, we're good.
Sorry.
Thank you, Jeff.
You
Anyone
can
else?
ask in the Discord later.
Anyone else have a question or a point? Yuri?
Yeah, I would just like to excite a little bit one of the points that I find really important, just to reinforce a little bit, and that is that the point of the mindset and information and education and knowledge regarding all these issues. Once we reach a critical mass, is what's needed, I would say, because the technology is available. And it's actually part of what Venus Project talks about. They explicitly say we don't present specific designs for the technology surrounding that supports the actual building of the cities, because technology is always changing and improving faster than we can keep up in redesigning the system. So the core is designed, but not the surrounding. So I would like to share a quote from what was associated with the Richard Buckminster Fuller, and that is that there is no energy crisis, only a crisis of ignorance. So really, we do have the technology, and it seems that the major issue is how to get enough people to actually say, whoa, we need to do this. Let's bring the technology together and do it for the good. Because I would suggest that if we don't have an informed population, power and ignorance leads to destruction, and the technology alone is necessary, but the technology is necessary, but not by itself. We need to be informed on how to use it to a positive direction, I would say. So I just would like to reinforce that point because I find it really important.
That is so true, Yuri, and especially Nicholas, the point that you made about focusing on the positive effects of the exponential growth of technology and artificial intelligence. I mean, there's a lot of things that people worry about, and that's everything to do with mindset. So being able in our education, in our discussions with people, to emphasize these positive points are one important way we can be the change, that we can help make the change that needs to happen. Thank you, Yuri. Anyone else?
Can I answer quick for my friend?
Yeah.
Can I answer? Yeah.
What's that?
Can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
To answer to my friend that spoke last, my opinion is to build an example. If you have an example, one picture is 1,000 words. If you have a walking garden or a walking something, a walking village, then you can convince people to come to the RBE very, very quickly. That's my opinion. To build an example, a test site is as you.
Yeah, and that's pretty much also, if I understand the most recent TVP newsletter, they outlined a lot of the current plans they have now to be building exactly these examples, and every little examples. There's a lot of people out there also proposing these examples. So yeah, I think that's the way things are going. Yuri, did you want to say something else?
You pretty much said it. I was going to say that it's already in the plans, and we hope to get there.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else that wants to say something or ask anything? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Lee.
Hi guys, it's the first time I've come along to a meeting like this. Been very interested. Nicholas, fantastic presentation, and thank you for sharing that information with us. I've come from a background of quite a geeky background. I absolutely loved technology, and I felt that I've kind of changed direction a little bit in terms of how positive I am about it, simply because technology is extremely powerful, as you've demonstrated so clearly. And so to just echo the whole idea about correct mindset, I think it's really important that as a species, we are evolving at least on a moral level so that we can apply this technology appropriately. And so I think, again, something that's being said is education and knowledge is extremely important, and that applying that knowledge effectively. But the real concern I have here is the subject of control, because there's a lot of control mechanisms, the powers that be. And yes, this technology makes things very, very cheap, but who will it make it cheap for if the corporations remain in power? So what's really important is people start taking responsibility for themselves and people start uniting and working together. So that's what we're trying to do through the Ubuntu Liberation Movement, is actually pull people together, pull these different projects together so that we can collaborate and actually beat the corporations and the capitalist system at its own game, and using these type of technologies for the benefit of humanity rather than against humanity by the corporations. But thank you again. Fantastic presentation.
Thank you, Lee.
Yeah. Can I just thank
Of course, Steve.
Yeah, for the presentation too. Thank you, Nicholas. And the technology, that's what's going to make this possible, but we have to get out from under the grip of the central bankers and the banking institutions. So that's kind of my thing now. And getting people to hear this, the political process is one way to do it. And Eric, that's great that you're running for mayor. And I have a friend, Richard Osmuston, who's running for mayor in New Zealand, talking about the Money-Free Party. And I'm going to be running again, doing another campaign, because it's just a great way to get the ideas out to more people in the political realm. So anyway, that's what I'm going to be doing. I missed part of this because I was up and down taking care of my mom, and I have to go back and do that right now. But thank you for the presentation, Nicholas, and thank you. I'm a big supporter of the Ubuntu movement, Lee. It's good to see you here, and I support, every group that's out there working toward this end. So Ubuntu as one small town is a way to get people to see how it can work rather than trying to make a big global movement. And so anyway, thank you, Lee, and thank you, everybody, and I'll see you next week. I got to run now.
Thank you, Steve. And again,
thank you, Steve.
I just wanted to add.
Who's talking?
Please look at chats, everyone. Please look at your chats. I'm sending private messages and not getting responses. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, Johnny, I responded to your private chat. Okay, is there someone else that would like to say something or ask anything?
If I could hop in here.
Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah. First, of course, I'd like to say, Nicholas, you've heard it like a dozen times, but it's definitely due. Thank you very much for the great presentation. I've definitely found a lot of information in it, something that I will probably put into my toolbox, that toolbox I was talking about, the presentation that I gave. It's always good to have these types of this type of information and these kinds of statistics at your fingertips to better complement a debate or discussion with people who may not think that these types of societies or societal changes are possible. So thank you very much for that. I thought it was really cool, watching.
Sorry, just one thing. You reminded me of something. A lot of the graphs that I got were from Peter Diamandis' website. And he has a whole page of just graphs with amazing statistics showing how the world is getting better. So I'll post that in the Moving Forward group on Facebook. I'll post a link to that and this presentation. So I only used a couple of those graphs. There's a huge amount, so you'll probably be interested in them and hopefully some others. So remind me to do that if I forget. And yeah, that's all.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that it was a very well-composed presentation, one that doesn't leave me with very many questions, but now I've kind of let go of some of them. As you guys might have noticed, I've been turning my camera off and on because I've been running around my office here. I've got a lot going on but I've had you blaring. I have my headphones on here, but I had you blaring through my speakers earlier while I was scurrying around. One of the really cool things I wanted to throw in there for everybody who thought that like circular house that's 3D printed that only costs like 10,000 American US dollars. Sorry. One of the really cool things about that is that they were actually using construction waste to create the concrete and the composite materials that go into its construction. So even the concrete itself, along with the materials that say go into the cabinetry and the plumbing, the pipes and stuff, are all primarily, I can't say all of it, is primarily built or constructed with materials that are being recycled. So this is another thing that drives costs down, is that, and it's also obviously has far less of a bad impact on the environment because it's just reusing or repurposing things that already exist. So that's another really, really cool trend. It was awesome seeing that video. I think I may have seen it once like 8 months ago, but it's totally an awesome refresher to have that on there. And yeah, great presentation. Yeah, said it 3 times already, but it totally needs it. All right, thanks.
Thanks a lot, Andrew.
Can't be said often enough.
I also, yeah, that's also a really good point, is how a lot of solutions that are coming up can actually solve nowadays problems. So I didn't even know that. I knew that they did it in China. They 3D printed some buildings in China using waste. I didn't know that Apiscore used waste too. So that's really positive. Another really cool one, I'll just throw this one out there just to show you that there's an abundance of these things, is the 3rd generation of solar panels, which I didn't talk about, are made out of perovskite. And while they're working on them because they just get destroyed with humidity instantly, so they need to solve that issue. But I saw MIT has managed to use something that's very problematic at the moment, which is all the lead acid batteries from cars, which are being disposed of now, which is toxic waste. They can make 100 solar panels out of one of those batteries. So they're using a problem that is toxic and polluting the environment. Now they're making solar panels out of it. And so if we set up like a lab in the resource-based economy city and got those things, then we've already got the materials to make solar panels. So as he said with construction waste, as Andrew said with construction waste, and many things that we see as problems right now, we could actually use them in a RBE active movement to our advantage. So things that seem problems right now could actually be really useful and valuable in the future. So that's a great point, Andrew. Thanks.
And that would make such a big statement to people in general, showing what the advantages of an RBE society would be. We're almost finished for time. Are there any people such as Stephanie or Neo or people who haven't said anything yet that would like to add something to the conversation? No? Nobody else? Yeah, Stephanie?
I'm just gonna make it short. It's just really well organized presentation. Well, when you showed the cooking robot, I really wish I could have one of them. Thank you.
Okay, so, well, then it's about time for us to close up the meeting for this evening. Just looking ahead to our future events. I see that next week, next meeting, so that's the 1st of October, we're going to be having a presentation on, what was it again? How to have discussions with people, basically how to use logic and conversation techniques in our conversations with people. The second meeting in October, that's going to be one about agricultural planning and agricultural uses in an RBE. And the final one for October is about an introduction Oh my God, I've forgotten it. I'm so bad. Since I started work again, I have almost no time for RBE. I can't even remember our schedule. Somebody help me out.
Is there a program?
What?
Is there a program you can? Is there a program you can upload?
It's all on the Facebook page. Moving Forward RBE Learning Network. All the events are there. You've got Facebook? Okay, then you can find everything. There's also a discourse group.
I got everything.
Okay. Oh, what's that group? Well, it's a really great, great presentation. I can't remember the name. It's another group that specializes in a transition plan from now into to a RBE. And you'll have to look that up. But October is looking great. After October, we haven't got any speakers. So if you have a subject you'd like to give a presentation on, if you know somebody who would like to give a presentation, please drop us a line at the Facebook page and we'll get you in for November. Okay, so, well, I'd like to thank everybody. And again, Nicholas, such a brilliant presentation. I was really interested from start to finish. You made us look really good. So a big thank you to all of you for your attention, your time, your participation, and I hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.